let's go ahead and continue where we left off. We're going to talk about Hitler's rise to power. Okay. So we've already talked about what fascism is, the rising threat of fascism in Italy, in Spain, in Germany, and of course we cannot consider this militaristic, authoritarian style of government without acknowledging the fact that the economic conditions of the Great Depression are what led to fascism rising. Okay, but in Germany specifically in 1933, when Hitler becomes the Reichschancellor, he is going to work up the German people on the idea that he's going to vindicate the nation, that he's going to make everything right after all the wrongs in the Treaty of Versailles. In 1936, and that's that part right there, Germany, Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. We're looking at this part right here, you guys. Oh, why can't I zoom in? Anyways, this part right here, the remilitarization of the Rhineland. In 1936, Hitler is going to start to build up his army once again, thus violating the Treaty of Versailles. But then in 1936, he begins to move those troops into the Rhineland, which of course is an area in Germany. It's inside of the country, but that it was supposed to be demilitarized after World War I by the demand of the French, of course, who were tired of being invaded by the Germans. So Hitler does this knowing full well that at any moment the French army could stop him. But he is willing to bet that they're not going to do anything. And of course, he is right. Part of the reason why the French don't really do anything to stop him is because they are trying to avoid going to war again. Okay? So they let him have it. They let him do what he wants in the Rhineland, and he gets away with it. And this, of course, emboldens him, boosts his confidence, and he's able to proceed with his plan on to next step, okay, which is the Anschluss, the reunification of Austria and Germany. Now, in 1938, he is going to take all of this a step further in taking over Austria. Now, he justifies this by saying that it's a political reunification, like I said, because both countries speak the same language, they have a close relationship, a long history, and of course, Hitler is Austrian, so to him it makes perfect sense, and kind of like considers it his destiny, like his how should I say it? Like his, oh my gosh, I had this earlier. Anyways, like it's his responsibility now that he's Reichschancellor to make it happen, and he does. Of course, the Austrians don't want to go, but they don't really have a whole lot of options. And of course, what do the French and British do? Nothing. They let him have it. They are appeasing him. Okay, don't forget that word right here, appeasement. They are trying to pacify Hitler. They're trying to give him everything that he wants, so that essentially, so he'll stop crying and they can avoid a war. Now, the next step in this, of course, is the invasion of a part of Czechoslovakia known as the Sudetenland. And of course, we are talking about this part right here. In 1938, Hitler justifies this by calling it Lebensraum, right? That Germany needs living room space, that they need room to grow, room to expand. And of course, the British and the French are going to confront him about them. They're going to call him out on this one, and they're going to have a meeting with him in Munich. Okay, this is the prime minister that is going to meet with Hitler. His name is Neville Chamberlain, Neville Chamberlain. He is the British prime minister. He is going to be meeting with Hitler, and they confront him about this invasion, and they say, you can't do this. It is a violation. And of course, Hitler assures them that they have to let it go, that he's promising them that this is it. This is the last time, to let him have this. He's done invading. And the British make the mistake here of believing him, okay? But not because they're dumb. Chamberlain is not a fool. It's easy for us to say, oh, how dumb. How could you fall for it? But Chamberlain's mistake here was that he was a gentleman. And he believed that Hitler was a gentleman. And, like I told some of you, I mean this in the 20th century, meaning of the word, where a gentleman was somebody that if you give him your word, this is it, it's everything. Where today, it's like we say, oh yeah, I promise I'm going to do this, and it's like, people tend to flake out or whatever, and it doesn't really mean anything. But back then, being a gentleman, this was a part of being a gentleman. Somebody like Chamberlain comes from the noble birth and upper class status. Being a gentleman meant so much more than manners and holding out a door for somebody. That's inconsequential. That's not what we're talking about here. He believes it. He's holding out that napkin in his hand. He gave me his word. He promised me that he was done. And he believes, along with a lot of people, that they've done it. They've achieved it. They've achieved peace in our time. But of course, Hitler lied to him. He wasn't a gentleman. And he's able to fool Chamberlain into giving him what he wants. Now, at this meeting at Munich, the French and the British pretty much make a deal with him, right? They decide to give him what he wants. They decide to believe him. They very much want to avoid a war. Chamberlain himself was a World War I veteran, and so he's a pacifist. By this point, they're doing everything that they can to avoid falling into that trap again. But this is where Britain really kind of draws the line, and they make a promise that if he is indeed done, then they're not going to have a problem. But if he decides to invade Poland, then that's it. They make a promise to defend Poland, and they decide to believe him, hoping for the best. But at the same time, they're kind of preparing for the worst already, and so they start really kind of mobilizing militarily and building up their arsenals and their weapons, because they kind of have a feeling that it's coming, and they're right. But for the meantime, they believe that they've achieved peace in our time. They have done it, and of course, Chamberlain is going to get a lot of the blame for kind of like why Hitler becomes so powerful, and why it seems like nobody can stop him. He will go down as the great appeaser. He will be forced out of the chancellorship, and then of course Winston Churchill will come in. Okay, but in the meantime, as all of this is going on, I want to remind you that this right here, the Soviets are going to go into a deal with the Nazis in August 24th, 1939. This guy right here, Joseph Stalin, he absolutely hates the fascists, but they decide to promise that they are not going to attack each other. That's what the non-aggression pact is all about. And in addition to that, they take Romania, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and Finland, and they decide they're just going to carve up Eastern Europe and divide it among the two. So this agreement, this deal, basically shocks the world. People can't believe it. And for now, it's smart. It's smart for Hitler because he believes that, he doesn't have to worry about Stalin for a while, and he's right. Okay, so this is pretty much the part of the lecture that I wanted to cover. I'm now going to stop it, and you can go ahead and proceed to part 2 of the lecture.